Your grocery bill isn't going up because food is getting more expensive to make. It's going up because the companies selling you food figured out that you will keep buying no matter what, and they are using that knowledge against you. Here is the short version. Food manufacturers raise prices during a crisis, like COVID or a supply chain disruption. Then, when the crisis ends, they don't lower the prices back. They keep them high, and they pocket the difference as profit. At the same time, they are quietly shrinking the size of what you buy, so you pay the same price for less food, and most people never notice. That is the real reason your grocery bill keeps climbing. Not just inflation, not just supply chains. Deliberate pricing strategy, designed to extract more money from you every single week. You have probably noticed this already, even if you couldn't name it. You went to the store last month and spent $180 on groceries. Same items as always, same store. And when you got home, you had less food than you used to. Maybe your bag of chips used to be 11 ounces. Now it's 9.5. Maybe your yogurt used to come in a 6-ounce cup. Now it's 5.3. Maybe your cereal box looks identical from the outside, but when you pour it into the bowl, it runs out faster than it used to. You are not imagining this. Between 2019 and 2023, the average American household spent $600 more per year on groceries, even after adjusting for inflation. A 2023 survey by the Lending Club found that 61% of Americans said grocery costs were their single biggest monthly financial stress, ahead of rent, utilities, and gas. That is not a market correction. That is a transfer of money from your wallet to the balance sheet of companies that already made billions last year. And the strategy is so precise, so well-researched, and so deliberately hidden that most people never realize it is happening. Here is how this works, explained simply. When something disrupts the food supply, a pandemic, a drought, a fuel spike, manufacturers have a real reason to raise prices. Ingredients cost more, shipping costs more, labor costs more. So they raise what you pay at checkout. That part is normal. But here is what happens next. When those costs come back down, and they do, the prices at the store do not come back down. The manufacturers keep charging the higher price. Their costs dropped. Their prices didn't. And the gap between what it costs them to make the product and what you pay for it, that gap is called the profit margin. And that margin expanded enormously after 2021. A study published by the Economic Policy Institute found that corporate profits accounted for over 53% of price increases in the non-financial corporate sector between 2020 and 2022. Wages and input costs accounted for the rest. In plain language, more than half of what you paid in extra grocery costs went straight to profit. Not to farmers, not to truckers, to shareholders. Economists call this dynamic price stickiness, the well-documented tendency for prices to rise quickly during a crisis and then resist falling even after the crisis ends. For consumers, it feels like a one-way ratchet. Prices go up fast, they come down slow, or they don't come down at all. Let's look at a real company. Kraft Heinz, the company behind Oscar Mayer, Velveeta, Jell-O, and dozens of other brands you buy every week. In 2021, they raised prices by an average of 7% across their product lines. They cited cost increases, supply chain pressure, inflation. Fair enough, those things were real. But in 2022, as those pressures eased, they raised prices again, another 15%. And in their earnings call, the CEO told investors that consumers were accepting the higher prices. Not that costs had risen, the consumers were accepting it. Kraft Heinz's gross profit margin in 2022 was over 34%. That means for every dollar you spent at the store on their products, They kept 34 cents before even counting operating expenses. And they were not alone. General Mills, Conagra, and PepsiCo all posted record or near-record profit margins between 2021 and 2023. Years when Americans were telling pollsters that groceries were their #1 financial concern. In early 2023, Conagra Brands, owner of Slim Jim, Hunt's, and Birds Eye, reported a gross profit margin of nearly 27%, up significantly from pre-pandemic levels, while simultaneously announcing another round of price increases. The companies were making more money, you were feeling more squeezed. Both things were happening at the same time. Now, here is the second tool they use, and this one is even harder to see. It is called shrinkflation. The price stays the same, or it goes up slightly, but the amount of product inside the package quietly shrinks. You are paying more per ounce, but because the number on the price tag didn't move dramatically, you don't notice. Gatorade removed 4 ounces from its standard bottle, going from 32 ounces to 28, while keeping the price the same. Chobani reduced its yogurt containers from 5.3 ounces to 4.5 ounces. Bounty paper towel rolls got fewer sheets. Oreo packages lost a few cookies. Domino's sugar bags shrank from 5 pounds to 4 pounds. Folgers coffee dropped from a 51-ounce can to 43.5 ounces, then again to 40.3 ounces over successive product cycles, each time with minimal packaging change. According to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, shrinkflation affected dozens of product categories between 2020 and 2024, including cereals, snack foods, beverages, cleaning products, and household staples. Edgar Dworsky, a consumer advocate who has tracked product sizes for over 30 years, calls this the sneaky price increase. The reason it works is simple. Your brain notices a price change faster than it notices a size change. If a bag of chips goes from $3.99 to $4.49, you feel it. If the bag stays at $3.99 but drops from 9 ounces to 8 ounces, you usually don't notice until you're halfway through the bag and wondering why you're already out. Manufacturers know this. Research published in the Journal of Consumer Research confirms that consumers are significantly less sensitive to quantity reductions than to equivalent price increases, even when the per-unit cost is identical. The packaging teams that design these products spend enormous amounts of time and money researching exactly how small they can make a product before consumers start to complain. They are not guessing. They are running experiments. On you, here is another layer most people never think about. The food manufacturer is not the only one making money off your confusion. Your grocery store is too. Supermarkets use a pricing strategy called anchor pricing. They put a high price on one version of a product so that the slightly cheaper version next to it feels like a deal. It isn't a deal. It is a carefully designed comparison that makes you feel like a smart shopper while you spend more than you planned. They also use something called loss leaders. A loss leader is an item, like a rotisserie chicken or a gallon of milk, that the store sells at little to no profit. The goal is to get you in the door, because once you're there, you will buy 15 other things at full margin. The store doesn't make money on the chicken. It makes money on everything you put in your cart because you were already there. And then there is product placement. The most profitable products, not the best value, the most profitable, are placed at eye level. Store brand alternatives, which are almost always cheaper and often made in the same factories as name brands, are placed lower, at knee level, because research shows that people buy what they see first. A 2021 study from Cornell University's Food and Brand Lab found that simply moving healthier, lower margin items to eye level increased their sales by up to 25%, with no price change at all. Location in the store is a pricing tool. None of this is accidental. Major grocery chains employ entire teams of behavioral scientists and data analysts whose sole job is to figure out how to increase the amount you spend per visit. Here is the bigger picture. The US food industry is not a free market in the way most people imagine. A handful of companies control most of what you eat. Just 4 companies: JBS, Tyson, Cargill, and National Beef process over 80% of the beef sold in America. In breakfast cereals, Kellogg's, General Mills, and Post control the majority of the market. In soda, Coca-Cola and PepsiCo dominate. In snack foods, just a few parent companies own dozens of brands that appear to compete with each other on store shelves, but are actually subsidiaries of the same corporation. When an industry is controlled by a small number of players, those players don't have to compete on price the way they would in a truly open market. They can watch each other. When one raises prices, others follow. Not because they communicated directly, but because they know the others won't undercut them. This is called tacit collusion, and it is legal. Economists at the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston published research in 2023 suggesting that this type of coordinated price behavior contributed meaningfully to food price inflation. It wasn't price fixing in the legal sense. It was something harder to prosecute. Companies watching each other and choosing not to compete. Senator Elizabeth Warren and a bipartisan group of lawmakers sent formal letters to the CEOs of major food companies in 2022, demanding an explanation for why profit margins expanded while consumers struggled. The companies responded with detailed explanations of cost pressures. They did not lower their prices. Here is the part that most people find genuinely surprising. When consumers started pushing back on high prices in 2023, buying less, switching to store brands, cutting back on name brand goods, food companies didn't lower their prices. They upgraded the packaging. They launched premium product lines at even higher price points. They introduced smaller sizes, officially marketed as portion control options, at prices that made them more expensive per ounce than the original. A snack size product that costs $1.49 for 1.5 ounces is more expensive per ounce than the full bag at $4.49 for 9 ounces. But it feels cheaper at the register. And it sells. Nestlé reported in 2023 that their smaller pack strategy was one of their most successful pricing tools because consumers responded to the lower sticker price even when the per unit cost was higher. This is known in behavioral economics as unit price blindness. Consumers anchor to the total sticker price, not the cost per unit, even when unit pricing is clearly displayed on the shelf label. Major grocery chains are legally required in many states to show unit pricing. Most shoppers never look at it. The companies know this. So the response to consumer resistance was not to give consumers better value. It was to find a new way to sell them less for more, while making them feel like they were saving money. That is not a company reacting to a crisis. That is a company that has studied your psychology more carefully than you have studied your own grocery receipt. Here is what you actually need to understand. Your grocery bill is not rising because the world ran out of food. It's rising because a small number of companies discovered, during a moment of real crisis, that they could charge more and you would keep paying. And when the crisis ended, they kept the higher prices. Then they found new ways to give you less of what you were already paying for. And when you started to resist, they found new ways to confuse you. This is not a conspiracy. It is a business model. And the most important thing you can take from this is not a shopping tip. It is a shift in how you see the transaction. Every time you buy a name brand product without checking the store brand, you are choosing to pay more for the same thing. Every time you don't check the unit price, the price per ounce, not the sticker price. You are doing their math for them. The companies that sell you food have invested billions of dollars into understanding exactly how to extract money from you without you noticing. The only defense is to notice, because the grocery store is not a neutral place where prices are set by nature. It is a carefully designed environment built to maximize what you spend. The pricing is not random. The product sizes are not random. The shelf layout is not random. Every single element has been tested, optimized, and refined over decades with one goal in mind. And it has been working.